Ito na inaanak ko ba? Yung pamangkin ko.
Okay, go.
Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. And we are the Group 1 in the PROFED 13 Statistics. And our research title is The Level of Academic Productivity in the New Normal of Learning, third year CIA students at TUP Manila. Now I present to you the researchers, the leader of the group, Acasitas Aldrich Jan, that is me, and my member, Marquicias Roel P, and Montilla Benji, and the last one is Perol Mikey. So now let's proceed. Our main objectives, number one, what is the demographic profile of the CIA students in terms of age, gender, and course? Number two, how does academic performance affect the level of academic productivity of students in terms of financial status and internet connectivity? Number three, what is the level of productivity of the third year students in TUP Manila? Next slide, please. And for the next question, why did you choose this topic? What is the level? Our own experiences as students have shown that our academic performance has changed since the shift of educational modalities. And for the relevance of these studies is to provide information on how students' productivity is decreasing and gain insights into the said issue. And for the teachers, this study will provide the possible reasons why the students' level of productivity is decreasing, and with that, the teachers will have information and they should be prompt to formulate plans on how they are going to improve and solve the problem. Now let's proceed to the next slide, which is the research questions will be presented by Mr. Roel Marquesas. Take it away.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Aldrich. And for our research questions, we have 20 questions, which is we use the Likert scale. One is, does financial status or internet connectivity affects academic productivity? Does academic performance issues affects academic productivity? Three, does your surroundings, for example, your family, household, chores, and siblings, affect your academic performance? Four, does the time management assist the students? Five, does online classes considered to be convenient for the learners in terms of to being productive? Does your current setup online class affects your academic productivity? Seven is educational application has an relation being productive. Eight is there any significant changes regarding to the online learning in terms of academic productivity? Nine is, do you think the level of productivity will rise up if the online classes continue? And the lastly, do you feel comfortable in online class in online learning? So for the next was methodology that will discuss by Mr. Benji Montilla. Mr. Benji.
Thank you, Mr. Marquisas. So methodology. First is A, study design. The researchers use the descriptive research design to determine the level of productivity of third-year CIE students in PUP Manila. By using Google Forms, the researcher will be able to utilize and measure the data collection procedure. It will later on provide the necessary data to figure out the level of productivity of our respondents in the new normal learning. Next is the sample. The sample selected the third year students of College of Industrial Education and Technological University of the Philippines, Manila. Random sampling will be used to determine the level of school productivity in new normal learning of CIE third year students in PUP Manila. Next is the population of third year students of College of Industrial Education is 710 out of 710 students. The respondents are 255 third year students of College of Industrial Education in Technological of the Philippines, Manila. Next. So C, data gathering tools. In order to obtain the data, The researcher will use one instrument survey form will be utilized, and with the help of Google Forms, it allow us to conduct survey. Using like scale, the gathered data will be presented using a histogram, percentage, frequency, line graph, and bar graph. Next is E. Data gathering procedures, step one, link provided. And next is the researcher will provide Google Forms survey for the questionnaire and will distribute it to respondent using the link provided. Step 2, sending the provided link. The researcher spent 1 week for distributing questionnaire. Step 3, collecting data. After the distribution, researcher will collect the data from Google Forms. And step 4, checking and solving. Checking to ensure the maximize retrieval, and the researcher will use the proper formula and statistics in order to complete the level of school productivity of third year students in CIE. So, statistical treatment. In this study of level academic productivity in the new normal learning, third year CIE students at PUP Manila, the researcher will use descriptive statistics by knowing the domain of how the students may affect their level of productivity. Based on the research problem, the researcher gathered the demographic profile of the third year students, which are not include the names of the respondent, and use it as an optional to ensure the privacy of the respondents. As a demographic profile, the researcher will use the frequency and percentage count to summarize the data. Next is the researcher will compute the mean and frequency of each domain. Researcher will summarize the data by computing the total of like Likert scale, which are who are strongly agree and agree neutral, disagree, and so on. All the questionnaires will also computed by the use of Cronbach's alpha formula, and also computed the Cronbach's alpha per domain to measure and knowing the difference on how the level of productivity may affect the third year student. By computing the domain of each using Cronbach's alpha, it can measure the level of academic productivity of new normal in third year CIE students.
For
Next
the
is Marquicias.
for the resultant discussion that will presented by me, Marquicias Roel P. So we we have gathered data which is the age, gender, and the financial status and internet connectivity. So we have the figure one percentage of frequency count age. Um, for the figure one, it is represent to the frequency count of our respondents. Most of the researcher respondent is 20 to 25 years old is 98.8%, while 1.2 are 26 to 30 years old with a SAT3. This concludes that our respondents' age is 20 to 25 years old, which is ideal age for 13 years students. So next, we have the figure 2, frequency count of respondent and gender. We have the shows the gender percentage of frequency count with a 47.8% of our respondents of men, while female make up to 53.2%. So we have the figure 3 bar graph count per course, and we use the minimum of 255 sample size for this, which has figure 3 shows BSI ICT has the highest percentage, and BTVT Ed is the lowest, which is 1.6. So we maximize the use of respondent and achieving the 255 minimum sample sizes using the Sloven's formula. So the figure 4 percentage and frequency count of financial status, which is we have 73.7% for the middle class, while 25.9% are the lower class. As the result, majority of our respondents are middle class, while the other half are lower class. So for the figure 5, we have the frequency count of internet connectivity. According to the data, 63.5% are using Wi-Fi as their internet source, while 36.1% are using data as their internet sources. This conclude that the majority of our respondent uses Wi-Fi as their internet source, while the other is half is data. So for the first domain, we have the effective for the table 1 frequency and mean. That is illustrate for the question number 8. That is there significant changes regarding to the online productivity, which has the highest answer, which is neutral with a mean of 132. And for the question 10, if they comfortable in online learning with the highest also the neutral, which is 133, which at least answered option with a score of 15. The overall result of the affective domain concludes that the neutral option scores the highest with a mean of 132.5, while strongly agree option scores lowest with a mean of 10.5. And for the for the line drop of a frequency count of a affective domain, it is the highest of the neutral, and the lowest is strongly disagree, which we can see the most respondent neutral based on their emotion and feelings regarding to their productivity by submitting their tasks and if they are comfortable in online learning. So we have the cognitive domain, which is the highest. In question number 7, the educational application has relation to being productive, which is the most answer is 133, and also the lowest is the 10, which is strongly disagree. So here's our histogram for frequency count of cognitive domain with the highest of 133. And we have for the second result, which is 86 agree, and the lowest is are disagree and strongly agree, which is emphasize the intellectual skills that build sequentially for a simple complex behavior of third year CIE student. Based on the result presented, most of them are neutral, regardless if educational application can help the students to be productive. And we have the table 3, frequency and economic domain. Since does financial status and internet connectivity affect your academic productivity? Most of the answer are neutral with a mean of 93, while the lowest is 0, which is no other answer in the strongly disagrees. So here's the figure 8, frequency count of economic domain, which is based on economic status. Since the financial, most of them are middle class and their internet connectivity are using Wi-Fi. So the data concluded that most of them are neutral regarding on their economic status. And the second and third highest are agreeing and strongly agree. So the respondents are up for their internet connectivity such as Wi-Fi and has an impact to their academic productivity. For the table 4, we have the human domain, which is does their environment such as family, household chores, and siblings affect your academic performance? The majority answer is neutral, and while strongly disagree was the lowest. Some respondents agree with the question and receive a mean of 87, which emphasize they can manage and adjust to their workplace regarding to their environment in their home. So we have the histogram of frequency count of a human domain. It demonstrates a neutral as the highest score of 155. The researcher inferred that the respondent answered neutral because they had already adapted the new mode of learning and their social environment, understood certain situations such as online classes. So we have the table 5 productivity domain, which a summary holds with a mean of question of productivity domain. Agree with the mean of 26. For agree is 89.8. For disagree with the mean of 116 for disagree. And the lowest is strongly agree with the 6.8, which is table 5 illustrate the frequency mean of productivity domain, which has The highest is neutral with 93%. The researcher inferred that the respondents neutrally because they had already adapted the new mode of learning and their social environment understood the specific situation such an online class. So we have the figure 10, which is the line graph of frequency count of human domain, which consists of question 2, 3, 4, 5, and 9. For the question 2 with the highest agree, for the question 3 to the 9 are neutral, which summarize that about their productivity, they are neutral and can manage submit their activities and being productive. And for the line graph, we have the count of level of productivity, the summary of reliability of each domain in the use of Cronbach alpha. The lowest are affective, and the second is productivity, and the highest is cognitive, which is most emphasize cognitive learning in their productivity as the seconds to the lowest, which are productivity is most of them are neutral regarding to the productivity because most of them as use time management for their passing activities. And for the conclusion and recommendation of the data that will discuss by Mr. Perol, by Ms. Perol.
Next slide. For the conclusion and recommendation, number one, to face-to-face and online classes are effective methods of learning. So it demonstrates that neutral has the highest score of 155. The researchers infer that the respondents responded neutrally because they had already adapted to the new mode of learning and their social environment understood specific situations such as online classes. For the second is the third year College of Industrial Education students use the majority of wireless fidelity and data. The percentage and frequency of internet connectivity according to the data, 63.5% of people use Wi-Fi as their internet source, while 36.1% use data. This conclude that the majority of our respondents use Wi-Fi as their internet source, while other half use data. Next slide. For the emotional area, the percentage and frequency of internet connectivity, according to the data, 63.5% of people use Wi-Fi as their internet source, while 36.1% use data. This conclude that the majority of our respondents use Wi-Fi as their internet source, while the other use data. For domain 4, cognitive, the percentage and frequency count of internet connectivity, according to the data, 63.5% of people use Wi-Fi as their internet source, while 36.1% use data. This concludes that majority of our respondents use Wi-Fi as their internet source, while others have use data. Next slide. For economic area, the data concluded that most of them are neutral regarding their economic status, since most of them are middle class and their internet connectivity is using Wi-Fi. So the data concluded that most of them are neutral regarding their economic status, and the second and the third highest are agree and strongly agree, which means are the respondents are affording their internet connectivity such as Wi-Fi, and it has impact on their academic productivity. For the domain, human domain frequency count, it demonstrates that neutral has the highest score of 155. The researchers inferred that the respondents answered neutral because they had already adapted the new mode of learning in their social environment, understood certain situations such as online classes. Next slide. For the productivity domain, the researchers inferred that the respondents responded neutrally because they had already adapted the new mode of learning and their social environment understood specific situations such as online classes. Most respondents emphasize cognitive learning over affective or cognitive learning in their level of productivity. Most of researchers responded is 20 to 25 years old, which is 98.8%, while 1 to 2% are the 26 to 30 years old. Figure 3 shows the BSIE ICT has the highest percentage, 24.7%, and BTB and EST has the lowest, 1.6%. In this question, number 1, does the financial status internet connectivity affect your academic productivity? Most of the answers are neutral. with mean of 93, while the lowest answer is 0. The results emphasize the intellectual skills that build lowest secondary from simple to complex behaviors of third-year CIE students. The Cronbach alpha histogram depicts a histogram of human domain frequency and count. Next.
And that concludes our research paper. We've worked so hard this semester, and I thank all of the efforts of my group mates, and I thank all my teacher, my professor, Miss Vito, for guiding us throughout our entire research journey. Thank you, and goodbye.